Right, folks, official good afternoon. Welcome to the NEBOSH National General Certificate, at least the April batch. I was saying chapter 2, but we did start late in April. It wasn't like it was early in April, right? And then I think oftentimes the past papers are what makes it worthwhile then, right? With that said, we are kind of behind by a lesson compared to another class that I have in Guyana, right? They started the same time as you all. And they would have started chapter 3. And I normally you all start to, but I know what had happened. I told you all that we had a passive class and that was needed, right? But it put us back by a lesson anyway. Right? Let's see if we can finish off this. Well, not as if we'll finish it. I did finish it with another class as well. So I know it could be finished, right? See if any of these look familiar to you from last week. That guy still is on the outside trying to come in, right? Had to be something with his device, right? Because I can't figure out what's happening there. Yeah, so remember we did this, what is the policy? And straight enough, we actually saw a question on it as well, right? So that's a good thing about your classes. I mean, in some of the classes, I don't do that. I don't really tie in. Like today, we had another certificate. I didn't do any past papers with them, right? But to me, the most of your classes, I have been able to put in a past paper in it. But that will probably stop by next week. I wouldn't pause in every class, especially if I know I want to push the work then, right? And do a pass it. But I think fairly well you have done one in every class so far. Believe it or not, it would actually have room for a bit of one today as well, right? So we did all of this last week. ISO 45001. We made mention of STO. We made mention of the benefits of ISO 45001 and how you can take these things here and turn them into a benefit. For example, a benefit of having ISO certified or becoming ISO certified is that you can take anything from here, but you can say that there's a greater emphasis on things like leadership. There's a greater, management of contractors. There would be things like greater risk management, right? Things like, risk and risk profiling and dealing with risk. All of those things would have been addressed if a company decides to become ISO certified, right? So today's moving on from that. That was if you remember last week, that was 2.1. Give an overview of the elements of a health and safety management system and the benefits of having a formal certified system. Today's 2.2. Discuss the main ingredients of health and safety management system that make it effective, general policy, organization, and arrangements, right? So if you could head that up, because what I wanted to do today is like we want to summarize that a bit, right? Like what the policy is all about, right? So if we can take it from here, we have the purpose and importance of certain policy for health and safety. The HSW Act 1974, Section 2, Subsection 3 says employers shall prepare a policy. It must be written if you have 5 or more employees and revised as necessary. The employer must state the organization and arrangements of bringing the policy into effect. They must bring it to the attention of their employees. It's a legal requirement under some other laws. This is short for the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulation 1999, Regulation 5. Not really an exam question, but if you want to know what it stands for, the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulations 1999 says there must be arrangements for effective planning, organization, control, monitoring, and review of preventative and protective measures. Arrangements must be in writing if you have more than 5 employees, right? So just general knowledge for now. But that's what I want to do now. I want to kind of take it out to the general knowledge because reading it doesn't really help you to understand it. It just helps you to read it, right? I'll read out this one and then I'll tell you what I want you to do. So general policy statement aims at our objectives to provide adequate control of the health and safety risk arising from our work activities, to consult with our employees on matters affecting their health and safety, to provide and maintain safe plants and equipment, to ensure safe handling and use of substances, to provide information, instruction, and supervision for employees. It must be signed and dated. All right, so the key features and appropriate content of an organization health and safety policy. So what we could do for me, we could start to break it up for you, right? So, but I want you to write something. So I'm gonna construct something there. If you have more paper, if you want to get paper, it's going to be like a flow diagram, and I'll show you what the policy is all about, right? And so if you have that, we can start now. You'd have to take it off as we go along though, because I'll have to clean this a bit, right? If you could just do, of course, a straight line policy, right? Something like a flow diagram. Let's dump this one so we can start over, right? If you have a page, you could start something like this. It's going to help you understand what it's trying to say, right? So maybe one more time again. And what you want to do with this one, you want to create um, right. So when I create three branches to this, these are the three pieces of the policy, right? This is what you're looking at there. So a policy, a HSE policy then, right? When you say the key features and appropriate content, you'll see what I'm saying. This is the three pieces of the HSE policy, right? Take it down and you'll see that there's a flow between them. There is like a connectivity between them. But you don't see it if you read it, and when you read it, you just read it. But really, there's a flow between the three pieces, right? So the first piece of the policy is called the statement of intent. If you have your book, you could just turn the pages and you'll see that you see it as well. So this first piece here, because I threaded into that part, is gonna give us some trouble, right? So the first piece is called the statement of intent. I'll just put your statement. I'll show it on this slide as well. I just have two hands. I'm gonna just finish writing this up and I'll move this slide so you'll see. So it takes two hands to write with Zoom now, right? So statement of intent. This other part here is called organization. That's a O, right? ORGAN, organization. Spelled with the S according to the UK. Right? And the third part of the policy is called arrangements. We'll have to take them off and do them in turn, but I just wanted you to see the flow between them. And if you do have more space, you could have draw your diagram a bit more spaced out so that what is going to take off now could actually fit all in one in yours. The last piece of the policy is called arrangements. Right? I just put arrange here. Right? Or if the marker is running, the marker pause there now, and the marker seems to have been stuck, right? So that's supposed to be arrangement, yeah. So that's the three pieces of the policy. If you watch this slide and if you have the book and you just turn the pages, you see the same thing. A health and safety policy. Let's go back here. The key features and appropriate contents of a health and safety policy. But there are three parts there, but the three parts are connected. So that's why I draw the connected line up here. Again, when you read it, you don't realize that there is a connectivity between it, but visually now, this is how it would probably be that the statement of intent is connected to the organization, which is connected to the arrangement. When we finish the first example, you'll see what I mean by there's a connectivity between them, right? So after we have the statement of intent, we have the next part here is what? This part is the organization. And then after the organization, there were two slides on that. After the organization, we have the arrangement, right? Well, a couple of slides. After that, you have the arrangement. And then after that, policy is actually finished, right? Now, I realize that a lot of the cameras are off. And remember, that is okay. But remember, you can't keep it off for the whole class, right? Remember, you all when you call, you ask about accreditation. Well, then that's a feature of having a class in an accredited school that you have your cameras on, right? So I'll give you some time to put it on here now. While I have some tea, coffee. Those are things I'm not supposed to be telling you all every class on a live. Remember, these videos make it to YouTube, right? It's okay to have it off. Remember we tell you all that, but you can have it off for the whole class. Yeah, okay. So see if you have this done, please write this down. I want to try to get into them. As I said, get into them with the context of the exam and not just to read now, right? And you could read and finish. It wouldn't be much of a class, would it? All right. If you have statement, really what should have been the statement of intent. So if you have more space, just finish off that for me. And it's supposed to be statement of intent. I would use whatever space I have here to expand on what the slides is trying to say now, right? So that you'll understand it. Remember, there's a difference between reading and understanding. And in this kind of course, there is no regurgitation. So there's no real need to really, say that you could read this, but there's a need for you to understand what it's trying to say, right? Before I move on here, let me show you something. I think I was trying to show you one last week, or either mixing it up with another class, right? So I'll just come out and ask. So you all have not done this part of the policy before, right? No, so I'm mixing it up with the class I had on Tuesday night, right? I don't think you all did this because I look back at your video, right? I don't think you did this as yet. You all did the thing on ISO, as far as I can remember, right? What do you all have in your notes? What was the last thing we had done? I'm trying to find a policy book while I'm giving you something to do now. I want to show you something as well. What do you have in your notes as the last thing that we did?
I felt
Son,
like we did this already, sir.
you think that we did this part already?
Yeah, and on that statement, we have goal, aim, objective.
Right.
Under organization, roles and responsibility, arrangements, procedure.
That's what I
I don't know if I
remember.
correct with everybody there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What about arrangement? Arrangement, you have procedures, yeah. So then that's what I was saying. As I started the lesson, that's why I had a doubt now. I was thinking you're supposed to
yeah,
be on chapter 3,
yeah,
right?
yeah, because
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
watching
But we
it and
can
I
take
see
this
the
as
same thing.
revision. Yeah, so that's why I pause now. That's why I pause. I wanted to hear what you had next now. Yeah. Because as I said, I try to remember in my mind how is it that we still here? Because like we supposed to be on chapter 3, right? Normally I have my classes in again, like when like what I do on the other class, like you all do the same thing as well. So take this as review, right? I guess we could finish it off as review, right? So just to finish it off and I'll start chapter 3. So I'm kind of excited for that because I was really kind of thinking how it is we still on this because chapter 2 should have been finished. By the time we reach this session, as I started the class, you all should have been on chapter 3, right? Anyway, just to recap this, I did have a past paper then, so then I didn't show you all that one. So did we look at the ISO past paper then? There's a question on the PDCA. Did we do this one? Something that looked like this? We did a question on something like that. Well, just before we leave this topic then, right? I did find another one. So let me just have you have a look at this one. And then we'll start chapter 3, right? Let me see if I just find it on the view screen here, what I put it, right? So this is like one that is based on the statement of intent, right? So this is another way the questions tend to come. Um, what they would have done here, right? If you have a look at this, what they would have done here, they actually gave you the statement of intent. So what I could probably give it is for class assignment, right? So they actually give you the statement of intent for a company, and they wanted to say based on the scenario only, to what extent has the policy been implemented? Um, just to expand on this, right? So like what you're really doing, you're looking at the statement of intent, which is, the company is saying to the best of our ability, we commit to prevent accidents. Just reading some, right? Investigate accidents, provide safe and healthy working conditions, provide safe plants and equipment, etc., right? So what you have to do, you have to take these statements and you have to go into the case study and see if you believe the policy has been implemented. So you're saying something like, in my opinion, the statement of intent that says prevent accidents is being followed, but then that'll be based on what you're seeing here, right? That'll be based on what you're reading here now, right? Which it doesn't look as if it's being followed because I've seen an accident, right? I mean, if you see an accident, it probably means I did not prevent an accident, so did not investigate an accident, right? So then that's what you're seeing, right? I don't know if you understand the technique with this one. With this one is a bit different from the ISO one. You're literally taking the statements of intent and then you're going to the case study and saying if, based on the evidence there, the policy has been implemented or not. For example, meet legal requirements. Like, are they really doing that in the case study, right? And then all you're saying is that, in my opinion, I believe that the company is not or is meeting legal requirement, right? That's the two ways the question could come. Tell me if you just have a look at this, if you're okay with it, and we wrap up this one here. And we're gonna dive into what we're supposed to already be doing, which is chapter 3, right? Tell me if you're okay with this one. We did one last week with ISO,
Basically, something like the MD.
something like
The MD, when we look at the last paper.
the managing director question. Yeah, yeah. It's something like that. But with this one, but if you understand, it's like they give you an apple, but you have to compare it with another apple. You know, like how I had a note just now, like when we say the statement of intent is your aim and your vision, but they give you the statement of intent, right? It's not as if you had to make it up, but you now have to go and see if this apple lining up with what the apple should be now, right? So this becomes a very question. So do you all understand this way of testing it? There's a 15-mark question. Again, if you wonder, is it really 15? You can check here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, they give you 11, but it's 15 marks. So then you have to double up on some. You have to look and see where some have two statements in it, like this: prevent accidents, injury, and ill health. That is two things, right? Prevent accidents and near misses. Let's see. Um, Provide adequate training, consultant workers. There may be more than one then reflection of this in the passage. So then you may have to find those. But it's a very easy question because you're comparing apples and apples, not even apples and oranges, apples and apples. They give you the statement of intent and you're just saying whether or not these things are being met, right? Let me take a note of this. I want to take a note of where the question is because they don't, it's not every paper then, right? Have a question like this. This is June 2023. And that was question, let me see. We'll probably leave this past paper up. Let me see if I leave it up because there's normally chapter 3 questions in this as well. Let me see if I could find a good chapter 3 question today. Um, it's kind of weird. Local authority inspection, management commitment. Wow, that's a short exam, isn't it? That 6 questions. That was probably a lucky exam, right? Normally, folks' papers are not that short. Task 5. I've taken a note of it, right? I wrote it down here. So I feel I'll assign you this question, right? All right. So without any further ado, I am actually happy as I told her because I was trying to figure out how it is we are not starting with the rest of the other classes, right? Just let me change the PowerPoint in the background a bit and give me a minute for that, and we would All right, so we are back, right? So let me just make sure and share this. Yeah, till I could feel something wrong being where we were at and not starting chapter three. It sounds so weird to be in this session, right? And not start chapter three. Anyway, so chapter three, one of the most tested chapters. Your project is actually inside here, right? So I think what I'll do, I still want to try to finish 3.1, 3.2, and maybe 3.3, right? And I know that's a bit of a stretch, but it's a pretty simple chapter, right? At least if I can finish 3.2, I'll be happy, right? 3.3 could be next week, and then the other week we could probably start your project, right? So normally when you start chapter three, it's kind of halfway in the course then, right? So 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, these are all kind of related. Describe the concept of health and safety culture and how it influences performance. Now, I don't believe you have this PowerPoint. I'll send it for you after the class, right? I don't have a class after you all, so I'll send it for you all after the class. I don't believe you have it. I actually cannot remember sending it, right? So I'll send it for you after the class. So now you can
Yes,
look at
you
the slide.
did.
You can,
So,
oh, you all have it? Yep.
yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I
Oh,
check my email here,
yes,
so we have it.
yes. Okay. Geez, of course, like I said, I probably mix you all up with the other class as well, right? And it's about two classes. I have three classes in the night, but one of them finished. One of them started this night. The Tuesday class started this. The Monday class and started there. They normally start the week after you. But once Tuesday do something, I know you all doing it too. That's why I found kind of weird that when I say we have to be on chapter two, because I know once Tuesday do it, then you all do it as well, right? So the concept of safety culture, how health and safety culture can be improved, summarize the human factors which positively or negatively influence behavior at work in a way that can affect health and safety. Now, the only thing with this, folks, is that it have questions, right? It have questions literally in 1 and 2 and 3. So that's the only thing that'll keep us back now, right? Let's try to get into it as quickly as we could. The revision is what we did at the start. You all saw it again. Well, it happened by fate that I was able to put back the three pieces of the policy for you all. Elements of the health and safety policy is the statement of intent, organization, and arrangement. So you got a good review there anyway. All right, meaning of health and safety culture. I'll read a bit, right? So culture is the way we do things around here. The HSE definition is that it is a product of the individual and group values, attitudes, perceptions, competencies, and pattern of behavior that determines an organization commitment, style, and ability to manage health and safety. Climate culture indicators as perceived by an individual or group at any moment in time. Bear with me a bit, I'll come back and explain them, right? So there is a relationship between good health and safety culture and performance. A good attitude and behavior towards health and safety is influenced by a positive health and safety culture. A positive attitude and behavior towards health and safety could actually reduce errors, violations, and accidents. An organization would perform strongly in health and safety would reduce human failures. What is the relationship between health and safety culture and performance? So there's normally better motivated workers if you have a positive culture who are more likely to follow rules and procedures. You can have fewer accidents, lost time, and absenteeism rate. You may have less fines, and HSE matters with the regulatory authority, the HSE in England and OSHA in the Caribbean here. Better reputation with customers and others. And you could have lots more benefits if you have greater staff retention, a positive safety culture, healthier, happier workforce, right? Possibly more input, more communication with your workers. So there's a whole range of benefits that comes with a positive safety culture, right? So culture could have what are called indicators of an organization health and safety culture. And some of the indicators could include accident rates, absenteeism, sickness rates, staff turnover, how much people are complying with rules and procedures, how much complaints you have against working conditions, or if any complaints at all. Notice these culture indicators can be positive as well as negative. Like, for example, if the accident rates are low, then it is a good culture indicator. If the staff turnover rate is low, nobody's leaving your company, then it's a good health and safety culture. You understand that a bit? If you have less complaints about working conditions, well, then it's a good health and safety culture. But if these things become high, a high accident rate, a high absenteeism rate. So you should write that down, right? The word high or low dictates if the culture is good or bad. Please take a note of this. The thing itself is not good or bad in itself, but what makes it good or bad is if it's high or low, right? I'm not stopping for the passive as you're trying to just run it through the theory. So the culture indicators could actually be good if these things are low. Low absenteeism, and that's good. You know, like everybody's happy. What is your complaint? Nobody's complaining. The chairs are good, the furniture is good, the salary is good. Well, that's a good culture indicator, right? People are being paid on time. Nobody's paid 2 weeks later, as in some companies, right? I'm just saying, right? You know, so that's a good thing. People don't really want to leave your company. There are some companies people don't leave. You know, they call them a family, falsely so, of course, right? But a family of companies, right? But you know, high or low dictates if the culture indicators are good or bad, right? Let's just go on a bit. I'll coming back to this, but just trying to run through it, right? So factors that may promote a positive health and safety culture. You have management, commitment, and leadership. Yeah, if they are doing that, right? That's positive. Health and safety being part of the organization, sorry, strategy and business plan. And they mean it. So they just don't say it, but they mean it, right? The company is providing information, instruction, and training. You are being, consulted, you're being spoken to, you're being, taking part in different committees, meetings, decisions. So that's good. Promotion of ownership. They're asking you, what is your view on this? What is your view on that, right? They set and they meet targets. They say, okay, this week we want to get training for 5 persons, they get it done. They say, okay, we're going to provide better boots, better uniform, better coveralls, and they get it done. So you have their respect because what they say they're going to do, they do. At least so it should be, right? But then most of the times the culture indicators are actually negative. Companies being reorganized, there's lack of confidence in the organization objectives and methods. There is uncertainty as to what they really mean. You all say do the work safely, but then you say hustle up and get it done. Managers make decisions that make you, believe that they're sending mixed signals, right? They say safety is our first priority, but then they say, get up, into these shelves or get up into that height. You don't have proper gear, you don't have proper, scaffolding. But then they say safety is our first priority, right? So then you get the idea. Most companies, the workers know. Most companies, like you could fool somebody on the outside, just like if you're selling a car, you could fool somebody and say these are really good car. But then if you are selling your car, like the faults in your car, right? So it's like that. It's like, on the outside, the company may look really good, but then the workers inside there, yeah, you ever join a company? Because I mean, we all kind of go through different jobs, right? I mean, okay, like you must have changed jobs. You ever join a company or in a company, and when you reach the company, you realize everybody wants to leave that company, like nobody really wants to stay in that company, right? And part of the reason, of course, a big part sometimes is salary. But also another part is that if you are not being valued, you're not being, taken into consideration. Like you can actually tell the workers, you can actually tell if the worker is in a meeting, you can actually tell this worker is not interested at all, right? You can actually tell those workers who are being valued and then those who just there because they waiting on the next opportunity. They have been sending out resumes left, right, and center. And as soon as another job comes that pays better, that may be better in terms of, what that person is looking for, then they leave anyway, right? The Caribbean and the Americas, we tend to look at a job like that though, right? I mean, and I'm not saying anything is wrong with it. I'm just saying that the mentality is different here. There are other parts of the world where they don't look like they don't look at a job for what we look at a job for. Case in point, places like Japan, Singapore, right? But I mean, nothing is wrong with looking at the job for money and whatever have you, right? Nothing is wrong with that. That's just how the system is in the Caribbean, still developing anyway, right? But the other parts of the world that people seek jobs out there, not just for the money, right? I mean, they are always being valued and stuff like that. And there's other parts of it, right? The Japanese are very good with that in terms of getting an employee and keeping that employee anyway, right? Anyway, it is what it is in the Caribbean, right? One's better. I know the strange thing is that people leave their jobs sometimes for just a few dollars more, right? All right, our peers influence us in many ways, one of which can be our safety-related behavior. The overall attitude of the workforce can be a driving force to influence other workers, especially those with a dominant or inspiring leadership style. It is therefore that the belief and perception of the group would soon also be that of the individual worker. Peers can influence health and safety by being present for safety meeting, personally wearing PPE, reporting accidents and incidents, effectively communicating with managers, taking part in inspections if needed, taking an active role in safety campaigns, stopping unsafe work and insisting that it is done in a safer manner, right? That's the end of 3.1, but we have to go back now, as they would say. Go back to the start, right? So get your pens out and thing, right? Yeah, they write a little thing here for me. So the first thing here I wanted to understand is that I'm going straight into the meat of this thing, right? Is that culture, right? How do you say this? Culture is not a policy. Like the safety policy, culture is not a policy, right? Culture is not a policy. There's no company that you can go to say, well, okay, bring me your culture policy. There's no such thing. Culture is not a policy, right? If you want, you can take some things I'm saying down, right? I don't have to write everything for you all. So here what culture is, right? Culture is intangible. You cannot touch culture. You can touch the policy for safety. You can say, well, where is your safety policy folder? You can touch that, right? But culture is intangible. You cannot touch it. It's there, but you cannot touch it. It's like Aiden, it's there, but you cannot touch it. You can see the effects of it, but you cannot touch culture, right? If you read this carefully, watch it. If you wonder, well, why can't you touch culture? Watch it here. Culture is your values. You can't really put your physical hands on somebody's values. Your attitude, your perception. You understand? So, but everybody have it. Everybody have a perception. Everybody have values. Everybody have competencies, but you cannot physically touch it, right? So that's the first thing to understand in this class is that today's lessons are a bit different, right? Culture is intangible. Every school, every company, every household have it. Culture, right? But getting back to safety, right? Getting back to safety. Or getting back to the company, culture is made up of two things, right? So the first thing here, if you didn't pick it up yet, culture is made up of two main things. Now, if you understand this, you'll actually understand all the past paper questions. This one thing I'm going to write here for you now, right? Culture is made up of two things. The definition says it is the product of the individual, which will be you. So if you want, you can put you here. Well, you can put me, but I'll put you, right? So culture is equal to you. Yeah, you, the worker, you, your values, your attitude, your perception, your behavior, that's you, right? Culture is made up of you, and they say it's made up of you together with, together is product. The word product actually means put together from maths, right? If you're teaching maths in primary school, and you're teaching children to multiply, and you say multiply 2 times 3, well, you have to explain to the child and why is 2 times 3 6, right? Why is, so we all know this, right? 2 by 3 is 6, right? But why? Well, primary school children will be able to tell you why. We here, we forget this already. Your teacher would have teach you this, but you forget, right? So why is 2 times 3 6? It's because what 2 times 3 really mean is that you're taking 2 groups of trees. That is what 2 times 3 really means. You take 2 groups of trees. So you have avocados growing in the Caribbean now and mangoes. So you say multiply means you're taking 2 groups of mangoes. So John take 2 groups of mangoes and Jane take 2 groups of mangoes, to the market. How many have they taken it all? So you put them together and then you explain to each other. That means two grouping of three. So then you actually add them up together, and that's how you get 6. Multiplication is repeated addition. So it means to put together. So when you say culture is the product, what you're doing, you're putting together your values, your attitude, your belief, your competencies. You're putting that together with who? With the group. Well, who is the group? The group happens to be not the physical building, because the building itself doesn't really have any values. It may have value, but not human values then, right? So the group is actually the managers. So take this down for me. This is the key to all questions. Like, if you understand this one slide, we could just pause and go and do passive, which we're not going to do. Just tell it you, right? So all the questions that come in chapter 3, they either focus on you or the managers. Like you say, what did the MD do wrong? Right? What did the supervisor did wrong? Right? What could the worker have done differently? Right? So all the questions focus on either you or the managers, right? Now, what we are saying is that, well, if I keep on with this slide, I'm trying to come off the passive buzz a bit today, right? So what we're saying here is that if these things are together, if the managers say meeting in the morning, 7:30, and the workers show up, the managers say safety glasses must not be worn, and the workers start wearing it. If you have that togetherness, right? What I'm saying is that you're going to end up with what we see here, which is something called a positive safety culture. Right? But as life would have it, let me try to get a slide here that have some space, right? As life would have it, right? Not all the time then you have that full togetherness between you and the managers. If you have it, you have a positive safety culture, right? However, many times there is a disconnect in one of these here. It could be you, it could be the managers. If you have your NEBOSH, most of the times it's the managers. And if you don't have any NEBOSH, most of the time it's you, right? But if you and your managers are on the same page, then you all have the same values, attitude about safety, you're going to have a positive safety culture. And if you don't, then you're going to have a negative safety culture. So the purpose of this speedometer here, you may be thinking, why did I put that there? Is because even though we cannot see the air, this is used to measure the air speed. But you cannot see the air, but you can measure it. That's the same thing. You cannot see culture, but you can measure it. Like what you were seeing here then, these things on this slide, even when I read them, these things are measurable. You can actually measure how much accidents you have for the month, right? And then those, right? This is a separate lesson, but I just want to January, February, March here, right? April, May, so far we reach in the year, April, May, June, right? So like what the company do on a monthly basis, they measure these things, right? They measure them, how much accidents they have. And of course, if I said if the figures were low, January, if it was low, but then they take it to mean that they are doing good. They take it to mean that, the company is moving on, right? Something like this now, something like this is big problems. If you're working in the company, you'll know. They'll drag you over the coals for this. This is a draggable offense, if there's such a thing, right? Like this have nothing to do with you, by the way. As a safety, now what you do, you record how much accidents it have for the month. But the month when it have plenty, like June 4 there, well, I know you finished June yet, I'm just making this up, of course. That is a cause of concern. You'll have to answer your managers for that. You understand this, folks? Culture is intangible, like the air, but we can measure it. So you can actually measure certain things, and that gives you an idea of what the company is like. HR will have this one. How much persons leave the company? Well, believe it or not, sadly so, more people leave in the start of the year than the end of the year. I don't know if you all know that. Most people come up with resolutions, which of course they would have prayed about. Daryl, sleeping. Yeah, sorry, Daryl is my good friend, right? So yeah, so most people,
I have a
more people,
question.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
These indicators, do they have like a threshold?
Yeah, you have to set your own limit. Each company sets their own limit. So they have a target, right? So like you see, here supposed to have a target, like the company should set how much accidents they want for the month, which is normally zero. How much absenteeism they want for the month, which may probably be, I don't know. I mean, I'm just making this up. I'll say zero again. How much sickness rate? Zero. How much staff turnover? Zero. How many people complying with safety rules? All. So that's why we have 10 employees, you put 10 there. How many complaints about working condition? You want zero. In this case, the target is zero, right? So once you start to get more than zero, it's a cause of concern. But one might be forgivable. That's what, April month? I just make these figures up, of course, right? But the thing is, folks, you'll understand this. Other than today's class, you will have to do this, huh? When you go there as a safety, this is something you have to do, right? They will have the template already. It looks just like that, by the way, just January, February, March, go down to December, right? But you have to record. But there is something I tell you with this sheet, right? With this sheet of paper. This is a spreadsheet, so it's a sheet of paper, right? There's something with it you have to be careful about, which is the company. If you're in those kind of companies, they're wholly responsible for these things, which is kind of strange. But I just telling you, Trinidad is weird, guy, and it's kind of weird. They like that 4 accidents in June, they will think you are responsible for that. But that time you in a next plant. I mean, if a company is big enough now, just saying, right? So there is a kind of view of this sheet that the safety is responsible for it. Right? Just to tell you. Right? If you want, I can tell you. If you want, I can tell you. Like when I was in Massey, remember I was a safety professional. It had one guy above me, Ben De La Rosa. He retired from Massey now, I think. I hear about Ben in 15 years. I hope he's still alive, to be honest with you. He used to be a lot on CNC3 and TV6. Every time you're talking, Ben was head of this and head of that. He probably retired, to be honest, because that's a long time. Come to think of it, he probably retired, right? I haven't heard about Ben De La Rosa in years. If anybody know what I'm talking about, he used to see him a lot. Every time we talk about things on
So,
safety, he would be on those
so,
talk shows. Yeah.
so just excuse. That Ben De La Rosa, if correct me if I'm wrong, I think I know that guy. I think he
Yeah.
would be P with me.
Yeah, it's the same guy. He's a
Yeah,
bald head guy. He used to have a bald
yeah,
head.
yeah, yeah.
He big like me, big
Big
in
guy,
stature.
red skin, yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
big
I know
guy,
him.
a
And
big
then
guy.
after
But mhm. Go ahead.
when he left BP, but I don't know. I guess he would have moved to the Massey. But I know the guy. I know the guy.
Yeah, but I know, I think he leave Massey years now. I leave Massey about 15 years now, and I think he leave around that same time. I don't know where he is. I probably feel
Oh,
he
okay.
retired. Yeah. Anyway, what I was saying, like he was the head when I was there, and I felt he had a bad way of doing this. Well, they still have bad ways, Massey still have bad ways, and every company still have bad ways. But it have good companies. The reason is that a lot of my students are in those companies now who are safety managers, so they know to treat this sheet with a grade of respect now, right? Like just to give you a quick one here for those of us when you get out there in safety. It had a time when well, Massey does still have all the safeties coming together, I believe, and you present, right? And anyway, it had this lady who presented from another company. And she was just reading all the figures, which is fair because remember, all you do is like you are not responsible for somebody getting sick. Remember, you're not God, you're just recording number sickness say half of the month, right? And Ben stopped her and he tore her apart in that meeting. And that was not the first time I saw that. That was about the third time I saw that. And everybody who that happened to, the weirdest thing is that Trinidad, such, as we say, bandwagoners, right? It's like in all of those instances, it was more than one company. It's one in Gali, Utah too, right? It's not just one branch of Master you're talking about, right? Some of these people still there, right? I don't want to call any names anyway. But I think they have a bad way of doing it, right? Like many times I've seen them do it down in Gali, Utah too. They stop the safety in the middle of the presentation and ask them what they're doing about the figures, right? And that to me is the wrong thing to do. Anyway, the long and short of this story is that the lady after the meeting, I saw her sit down and I saw her like she was feeling bad, right? And the weird thing is that nobody came, and this is one of three stories that nobody came up to them and spoke to them. it kind of like the view of Ben was the view of everybody. It's like they're responsible. And I went on and I said, no, I said, this is not how it's supposed to be, right? One person, Massey is a huge company, right? In any company you go to, Massey is more than 200 and something workers. One person cannot police the entire compound. And then how are you responsible for, somebody on the machine shop floor if they decided to climb and fall? So I often felt that was a bad way of looking at it, but that's how they looked at it, right? And I'm telling you, I have a next one. I know down in Galiota, but I have some students down there too, right? I have some students there too. But I saw him literally stop one of my students, a safety student, right? But a safety girl. And that was a bad way of doing it. But like I said, time and tide does change, and there's a way to look at this. Yes, you can hold a person accountable, but not in front of everybody. You understand that, folks? So that's what I'm telling you now. Those of us who get out there in safety, just have some backbone, have some backbone, have some backbone, have some backbone. And even from your managers, right? They look at the sheet sometimes as if somehow you are magically to ferry the whole compound of 250 workers plus anyway, right? But just bear this in mind because different now I know companies treat this in a nice way too. They support you, Atlantic, Proman. I know companies that support you on this, right? As opposed to saying, what you doing about this? What you doing about that? In the middle of the meeting, stop your meeting and just stop. They just stop your meeting, just one. My poor students were there. So I just have to tell you all too now, right? That time and tide has changed, right? Everybody, yes, we take that same accountability, but not how they do it in front of people to embarrass anybody. This sheet has kind of been, getting a bad name based on how some people treat it and how some people hold, you could hold you accountable. You can say, well, Jack, what are you doing about, the sickness rates? Have we done any dust measurements? You can do that behind the scenes. There's no need to do it in front of people and make you feel bad and to make the other one look good now, to make the safety man look good, you embarrassing the other person. So I'm just telling you from my experience, this sheet has been getting some kind of bad rep in terms of you presenting it. You have to record it. And when you record it, you have to present it. It's not just recording for recording's sake, right? So I'm telling you, have some backbone, stand up for yourself. I have students who do it, and I'm telling you, I have students who do it and say, this is not, my job is to record. My job is not to do X, Y, and Z here. That if you want that done, then let's get it done, right? Stand up for yourself, right? I have people that do it. I could call some of their name. Small people, when I say small in stature, but they stand up for themselves, right? Don't let anybody take advantage of you once you have your qualification, right? And when you get there in a managerial position, make sure you treat this sheet with the accountability, but also with the respect that comes with it at the same time, right? All right, folks, that's a blast of reality there. It really had to get out of that culture in this country, though. But like I said, some companies have my students there, so we treat it a bit differently. All right, but did you all understand what I was trying to say, though? What I was trying to say there is that culture is made up of your belief and that of the managers, right? So all the passive questions come on that. In other words, then let me try to say this another way. How do I say this another way? If you're making a cake, right? And they say the cake is made with eggs, flour, and whatever other ingredients, right? Yeast and whatever. I don't know to put yeast or whatever in it, right? I don't really make cakes. But that is what the cake is, right? So this is what we say culture is. Culture is you and it is the managers. So therefore, all the questions here would either ask what the managers did wrong or what did you did wrong, right? I don't know if we could look at one, but I don't have one lineup and I want to go forward a little bit still, right? When I finish 2.2, we could look at a pacifier, right? Do you know that NEBOSH, so you take a note, right? They ask sometimes, the most common question then, right, is like, what are the negative indicators? I just put, well, minus VE, which is negative charge, but short for saying negative, right? So most hospitals ask what is negative, and most students like that. If I get a chance, I go February paper for you. February paper tell you people, February had high passes. They ask negative safety indicators. They ask about 15. I tell you some students put 20, which I told them they put too much because you don't get extra mark. I think it was 13, something like that, some odd number. I'll open the paper just now, right? But whatever they asked for, the students got more now. They got more than 13 or 15 or whatever. They got like 20. Then somebody put 25. She passed, of course, they passed. That's a student from Guyana, right? But what I say, do you know that sometimes they ask positive? They ask positive. They're hidden up in the passages, positive things. The weird thing is that most students don't like the positive questions, and I can tell you why. They hide it really well, right? They hide it really well. We don't have time to look at all the passive, but I just recall it here, right? I think December last year or October, right? They had a positive question and they hid it really well. Like the whole passage was just negative, and then there was just like one passage, well, I mean, one paragraph that had positive in it. So you had to really milk that because they asked for like 10 positives. That was tough because most people, like when you're reading it, you're seeing the negative, but it didn't ask negative. Please take a note of that. Huh? You're seeing the accident, but they didn't ask negative, they asked positive. You're seeing the manager shouting at employees, but they didn't ask negative, they asked positive. So you really had to read this thing over and over and over again to get the positive. There was some positive in one passage that said the CEO would meet with new employees, there was training, right? And so you can extract about 4 or 5 from that passage, that paragraph, sorry. But the rest of it, you really had to twist and turn to see where had other positive in the past paper, right? So let's take a note of that. If I get a couple of minutes, I'll open one for you, but we're moving on a bit, right? The next thing here, so I went back and I explained the formula a bit for you. We explained that culture is intangible, but you can still measure it just like the air. You can't see the air, but you can measure wind speed, right? Hurricane, storm and stuff, we all familiar with that in the region here anyway. All right, this one here, now we don't need to go too far. This is another question. Yes. The influence of peers is another question, right? And like what I have here, some past papers ask for the positive influence of peers and some ask for the negative influence of peers, right? Who are your peers? They are your co-workers. It will be in the passage when they ask you it. It is kind of common, just like culture questions, right? The way it's taught, though, it's taught as if it's from a positive perspective. If you read it, you'll see. This is how learning is today. We take a positive approach in many things. So it's read from a positive perspective then, right? The peer can't influence health and safety behavior by being present for safety meetings, personally wearing PPE, reporting accidents, incidents, communicating, the list goes on. But in reality, peers may do otherwise, right? Tell me if you're okay with these. The 2 questions are the same. You either get positive or negative, and the answers will be hidden up in the slide to say what the person is doing, right? Of course, I say here, please buy a printer if you haven't heard that story as yet. Not for anything else, but to print the paper because you're going to have to take a fine, pencil, pen to read through your case study to find these things, right? But peers is not a strange question. Please take a note of that. Exam still is on the slide here. I left it. Peers and culture are 2 very much common questions anyway, right? So we're moving on, improving health and safety culture. Before I move on, though, I just want to point out one thing to you. Because this is easy. If I tell you this, you understand it. If I can tell you this in 1 minute and you'll understand it. Right? But so let me just tell you something before we move on, right? So before I move on, you may have noticed a character on the slide. No, it's not SpongeBob. Oh no, I know, but it's somebody else, right? Who is this character? Who is the character on the slide?
Homer Simpson.
Okay, Homer Simpson, right? So the question is why? Why is Homer Simpson on this slide, right? Is it just because I was trying to be funny?
Because he doesn't practice any kind of safety while he's on the plant.
He doesn't, right? But there's a greater reason to that answer, right? It's a very good answer, right? So do you know, let me tell you the facts now. So do you know that the official mascot for health and safety in the UK is Homer Simpson? Yeah, the creators of The Simpsons signed an agreement with the HSE. If you look at this poster, Notice this poster was not created by me. This is a poster I just got from the internet, right? Report it. Don't ignore it. Explain exactly what happened, right? So in case you don't know, I always say we have a very cool mascot, right? Other than bringing up memories of the Simpsons, Homer Simpson is kind of the reason why they chose him, because he does a lot of stuff that is wrong. So he being on an ad, then he being on a safety poster is going to be a bit eye-catching. Is either you figure out that you need to go and look at some Simpsons on Netflix, or you probably would still look at it to see what he's trying to say, right? But in case you didn't know, right, like I said, I'll say it again, the creators of The Simpsons signed an agreement with the HSE and the worldwide mascot for health and safety. No, it's not Barney the bear or any sort of weird creature like that. It's actually Homer Simpson. If you are looking for a safety poster, you don't have to look far. Just go to Google. What is Google? What? Google Images. Google Images. And you can just get a picture of Homer. And, if you're looking for a safety poster to put around your company now, right? We have an official mascot, which is, when I say we, the world have a mascot, which is Homer Simpson, right? All right, moving on, right? So I was going to explain this to you, and if I explain it in one, you would understand it. So let's see, what does that really mean, right? So the heading here, watch it, is improving health and safety culture. Yeah? The heading is improving health and safety culture. But we already said what culture is. What was culture? Culture is equal to what? Or culture is equal to who? The heading is improving health and safety culture, but we said what culture is. What was culture? Culture is equal to what? Culture is, who makes up the culture of a company?
Persons.
Right. So who are the
Or
persons?
you.
One of them is you, and the other one is your
Product.
managers.
Oh,
Right? The
man.
managers. For the managers, I'll draw a billing, but please remember, it's not the billing we're talking about, right? It's really the managers, right? So if you're making a cake then, and the only some of the ingredients, sorry, the two things is flour and eggs, right? But you want to make a really good cake, then what you should probably do is get some really good flour. Yeah, you have really good flour, almond flour. If you mix flour with almond flour, and you get some high quality eggs, probably go for some foreign eggs or something, right? Some high quality eggs, right? You're going to get a better cake. So what I'm trying to tell you, to improve culture, then there's only two things to do. Watch it again. If culture was just two things, you and the managers, right? This is the managers up here, right? If culture was equal to you and the managers, then there's only two ways to improve culture. You either improve on yourself or you improve on the managers. That's what you will see on this slide. Watch it with me now. This is not too much of a question, right? Improving culture, not too much of a question, right? Watch what you see here. What? Gaining the commitment of management. And then after you finish with them, the next thing is making sure people are competent. So in a way, there's only two ways to improve culture. You either improve on the managers, watch it there. Senior managers should, senior managers could, managers should practice what they preach, right? Everything should be a part, right? So you're improving the managers. And then the other way now, you're improving yourself, culture. You're improving yourself. Sorry. Improving yourself, your competence, your skills, right? Taking a course, whatever. I mean, course doesn't mean academic all the time, right? You're improving yourself, verbal, written, graphic skills, looking at videos, looking at things, right? We all improve ourselves. Think about that. You all improve yourself. We're not talking about safety now. You all improve yourself, right? Many of you, yes, many of you are looking at educational videos on YouTube, educational videos on TikTok, yes, but educational to you, right? People are looking at a lot of things on abundance these days, manifestation these days. People are looking at, and like whatever interests you, if you look into things like cooking, hairdressing, safety, whatever you are doing, you're trying to improve yourself. So people are always doing that, right? It's not just about safety now, right? But we're saying for safety, then if it is a worker, the worker could be put on a course, defensive driving. The worker could be given some refresher training on wearing PPE or safe systems of work. There is only two ways, you understand what I'm trying to tell you, to improve culture. If culture was two things, then you improve on the two things. And again, one last time, this itself is not too much of an exam question, right? But it is 3.2, right? Let's just go into it a bit. So you'll see senior managers are culture drivers, and so if you can get their commitment to health and safety, that would be nice. If the organization treat health and safety as a low-level task or a shop floor task, then the organization will fail to manage health and safety, which influences culture. So then don't treat it as a low-level task. The health and safety policy and procedure should be endorsed by senior management so as to engage them. Managers should be visible when they promote health and safety. For example, take a walkabout. You ever see that? You ever see that? You ever see a manager, a director walking about for safety? Have you ever seen that? No, we're not talking about walking about for production. We're talking about the director of your company walking about for safety. You ever see that?
Yeah, sometimes when they're doing EFTs.
Yeah, or if they're doing an audit, right? They prepared for an audit, you'll see them doing it, right? But what it sends a different message. I don't know if you heard this story before. I've told it many times. I kind of fed up telling it now, but I'll tell it one last time till the next class. That's something I did at Massey, right? My CEO, his name was Stuart Sanka. He left Massey now. I think he have his own company. Those who hear the story 100 times already, right? But like what I did, right? I got Stuart to come in the meeting a morning and host the safety meeting. Just imagine what I'm telling, like you reach the work 7 o'clock, but 7:30. 7:30 is to be safety meetings, I think. Yeah. 7:30 is to be safety meetings. Let's say reach 7 o'clock, clock in whatever. And then it's Monday morning, so you're going to see Shadrach in the room there just talking, same set of safety things as usual, right? But then when you open the door and you come in, workers come in with their coffee, they come in with their sandwiches. Massey have a cafe upstairs. Most Massey, are like that, right? So you come in with your coffee, you come in with your sandwich, and you come in and instead of seeing me in front, you see Stuart Sanka. You can imagine the shock. You can imagine the shock. Everybody got quiet. What would normally be the kind of talking before I say, welcome to the meeting and say a word of prayer or something. Everybody, you could hear a pin drop, right? What I had done behind the scenes, I had met with Stuart and I told him something to talk about for safety. So anyway, 7:30 came, everybody there sitting quiet and expecting to be fired. Stuart didn't fire anybody. He just went on to have a normal safety meeting. He just did what I would have done. I just gave him my notes and he just presented it. He's a tall guy, tall kind of fair guy, deep voice, right? So at the end of the meeting, could you tell me what the workers were thinking? What would you think if your CEO come in a meeting and have a safety meeting, and then at the end of it ended and left the meeting, and you still sitting down there kind of shocked that the CEO actually was here in a meeting? What are you thinking? What is the impression that get to your mind? And the answer is to the top here. What impressions did you or would you have gotten if that was you? In the meeting, like a participant in the meeting.
Commitment.
Yeah, you showed a commitment. And what would they have said about Massey and safety? Anybody? What would they have said about, what did you have said about Massey and safety in the company now?
That they take safety quite seriously.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Why? Because I was saying that every Monday morning meeting anyway. The safety people were saying that all the time anyway. But what changed? What changed was what? It's in the heading here. What changed?
The leadership.
What changed was who was saying it?
Yeah.
Is it, you know what I had Stuart talk about? Safety glasses, the simplest thing. I didn't want to give him something hard to talk about, right? I had him talk about safety glasses and present, right? But everybody left taken away by Massey taking the safety thing seriously. No, but was the same thing I was saying. What changes the manager? Visible management commitment motivates employees, right? Managers should practice what they preach. Managers should praise good performance. So this is all about improving management then, right? Health and safety should be part of the agenda in management meetings. And if you falter, they need to take appropriate disciplinary action. Yes. That's how the message gets sent now. The message gets sent to the workforce, even if you tell them, remember everybody have WhatsApp. But you know the strange thing is, folks, you know the strange thing? 15 years ago, didn't have WhatsApp, but everybody used to still know. it always have, like the grapevine was faster than WhatsApp anyway. Bacchanal then is faster than WhatsApp anyway, right? Like what I'm saying, if like I'll give you a real one, like I had a worker that tested positive for marijuana, THC, right? So you have to take the disciplinary action, even if he was a good worker, right? Like, because if the manager didn't do it, then the message would have been sent that, the company not really taking on the drug policy or whatever, right? So we have to send home the man, right? The thing with Macedo is that they have or had, I probably believe they still have it. They have a good drug rehabilitation program, right? So the worker was sent to that rehab program anyway, and believe it or not, the company was actually paying for it, right? But as a manager, see, if you let it slide, and you say, look, Frank was smoking in a no smoking area, right? Or, this person reached the work late, but he and the managers is friends, and you let that slide, those things are defeating your culture, right? The manager would say, nah, let Frank come in, man. Frank late already, But, the thing is, if you have a PPE policy, and you say nobody have to come through the gate without proper PPE, but they let Frank come in, the workers will hear that. They say, look, Frank come in this morning with a slipper on his foot. These are true things I'm telling you, right? Frank come in this morning, everybody wearing PPE. You can't come in the guard without, some companies, you all know what I'm talking about. Folks, I don't know if you're how serious this thing is, right? You can't come in some companies without proper PPE, and you dare not even walk through the gate, right? But they let Frank come in, right? And that going through all the company, even before WhatsApp, everybody know Frank come with a slippers on his foot. That was not supposed to be. You're supposed to send home Frank. He could be the safety manager. Send him home. You understand, people? Because they will say, if Frank could come with our slippers, then I come with our slippers tomorrow too, right? It defeats the safety culture. So that's what they take here. Appropriate use of disciplinary measures can also be used as a tool of promoting health and safety standards. It's like parents and children there. It's like parents and children. Rules in the household, right? Anyway, right? So managers can take an active role in workplace inspection, full cooperation with fire drills, often difficult to get, and other emergency training. They can identify and keep up to date with legal requirements, such as those found in the various acts and regulations in the UK, right? After you finish with the managers, is now what could you do, right? So the employer can make sure they hire somebody that's competent. That's why they're asking for NEBOSH. That's why they're asking for sometimes 2 years, 3 years experience. They mightn't get the experience, and you can talk your way through an interview. I know, everybody that started today, right, started at nothing with no experience, right? They start with a qualification, and if you present yourself well enough and get somebody to do a good reference for you, you'll get in, right? So the employer must provide competent persons with adequate time and resources to perform effectively. An employer must provide adequate arrangements to ensure competent persons cooperate, procedures, meetings, appraisals, like performance appraisals, right? So anyway, about you now, you can do some things to improve on yourself. Let's just take a look at you a bit here. And you'll see, right? There's a definition for competency that does not come for exam, but I like this definition, right? Competence is defined, this is some health and safety executive, not mine. As a person, think about it, right? As a person, think of a plumber, whoever you know, think of a mason, think of you, right? What makes somebody competent? Competent is defined as a person with practical and theoretical knowledge, meaning book knowledge, certificates then, that's theoretical, as well as sufficient experience. Those three things are what makes somebody competent. Certificate, practical means they know how, and then you have some experience, right, of a particular health and safety aspect, but it could be anything, right? Just think about a mechanic, right? They may have done a course, right? They have, they know what they're doing. They say there's a good mechanic, there's everybody going there, and they have some years doing it, right? Now, mechanics sometimes have years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever. So everybody going by that particular mechanic, right? Do you all know people like that in your community, in your sphere? Sometimes some of these persons don't have the paper, like the certificate, but they could do the job still, right? lots of masons, welders, they normally have certificates and I had to track it back though, right? They normally have something they did probably at NESC or something, right? But then on top of that, like they putting out good work there, right? They have been doing that for 15 years. You look at the quality of work, it looks very good anyway, right? So that's what makes somebody competent. If you want to just underline them a bit, if you have it, practical, theoretical, and sufficient experience. You put these three together, you make a competent person, or you find a competent person, and somebody would have been competent, right? I just want to ask a weird question here, right? If you understand it, if you don't understand it, just wait until somebody has answer, right? If somebody doesn't have all of this, right? Which one would you want them to have? And you could still hire them. So the three things is this, right? You have your certificate, cert, right? Practical means know-how, like they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Yeah, they know what they're doing, right? That's practical. Practical means a know-how, right? And the other one is experience, right? If by chance, because remember, like when you get your NEBOSH, you mightn't have all of these now, right? But think about people in your community or maybe people that you have interacted with, right? Which one of these would you, because we sometimes do that now because we sometimes can't find somebody with everything. But which one would you hire them on? Would you hire them on their cert? Would you hire them on their know-how? Would you hire them on their experience?
Experience.
Experience?
I might say know-how.
I would say know-how too, because I've actually done it, right? No, I'm telling you. So you all know what I'm doing up a building, by Palmies there. But not that one. I did another one, right? Yeah, I actually did this after my second building, right? Yeah. I tell you, I live many lives anyway. But the first one I did, right? I had a plumber, and the plumber told me, if anybody do plumbing here too, I have work for plumbers by the way too right now, right? But I'm not using this guy that I used before, right? A plumber told me he's a plumber, he's certified, he brings certificates and all kind of thing. He have this amount of experience and all kind of thing. And anyway, putting up one of these faucets, these modern day faucets, right? Everybody have them now. I mean, they get them, Shaguana, San Fernando, the ones that you could actually, I think you have to raise it up, right? So you raise it up for the hot and cool, right? And you raise it up and you turn it, right? So he was putting up that. And man, I left him putting it up, right? Because the sink and everything was just to put in the faucet now, then connect the hot and cold hose and whatever, right? And I left it about an hour. I came back. It was night by that time now, night. He had all of these lights looking up from underneath. He was lying down on the floor, which was tile, and looking up, because we had gotten that part done already. Looking up and he trying to fish these two holes into the into the faucet now, right? And screwing it up and it falling out, falling out. And I was like, you want to just take out the faucet and put on the hose first, and then just pass the hose through the hole in the sink. I don't know if anybody understands what I said there, but you can adjust it. He put the pipe up first and then trying to fish the hose in it now from underneath. And I was like, you just want to just pick it up back, put in the two hoses, and then drop the hose through the hole in the face basin sink kind of thing now. And he was like, you know why he didn't think of that before? And I'm telling you, sometimes they know how is the next one. Look, I have something here. I had somebody did some electrical work in the office here. And I said, based on that, I'd hire that guy to do the electrical in my building. This man take about 4 hours to run one wire here, right? And on the top of that, if you all ever come to the office and you watch outside, he put a plug outside the office. For some strange reason, why is there a plug outside my office? I'm not outside the office. And these are the people who say they're competent, right? They have 10 years experience, basically know how. They know how. So since that, I have been doing my own plumbing. I have been, whenever that sink thing, it needs changing often because it's hot and cold water. It tends to kind of have a leak from time to time. I change it for myself. I've changed about 3 or 4 so far in about 10 years, right? But what I'm saying, I didn't know how in experience, didn't know how, not experience, didn't know how in competence is like, that is why I could still hire somebody. Somebody mightn't have a certificate in welding or whatever, but they know what they're doing. They know how to weld up whatever they weld. And you have seen their work there. That person may not have 10 years, they might have 2 years, but they know what they're doing, right? They know how. You will still hire them based on their practical skills. Did you understand that? So that's how sometimes you get hired. You have your cert and you have the NEBOSH, which is how to do a risk assessment. It's like how to read your KPI sheet. You mightn't have 3 years experience, but because you have the NEBOSH, it's kind of practical in that sense. That's why companies take you anyway, because, I mean, not to mention it is the standard, but NEBOSH is kind of practical driven. It's kind of hands-on, right? 4 or 5 months in class, and after that, you're out in the field. Right? It's like that kind of competence-based qualification because you know what to do once you have your NEBOSH anyway, right? All right. So let me take that off and I'm just gonna show you something here now, right? So what they did here, when I say the course syllabus, the course syllabus said there is a way to improve on workers' competence. And the way was this: good communication, right? So if a worker, right, is not getting the message from a supervisor, well, we need to improve on the 3 ways of communication, right? So there are 3 main types of communication: verbal, written, and graphic. Communication is defined as a process by which information is exchanged between a sender and a receiver to gain a feedback before a decision is made. Before a decision is made, not after you make the decision, you're telling them. Before a decision is made. That's proper communication. We suffer from it a lot. When I say we, I in that too, right? We suffer from that a lot. Lots of companies make decisions and just inform the employees. That's not communication, right? You know? All right. So the next thing, if you watch, I want to break it down for you. The next thing, what they did here, they just looked at the barriers to communication. Like, what is the barrier to verbal communication? What's the barrier to written communication? And what's the barrier to graphic communication? And if we reach here, that is where I wanted to reach today, right? So let's go back. The barriers to verbal communication could include a lot: language, dialect, jargons, use of technical language, abbreviations, background noise, distractions, hearing problems. Can you think of any more barriers to verbal communication? I'll give you a clue. You're probably experiencing one right now. What happens when it rains on a Saturday around 4 o'clock in the day, 3 o'clock in the day? You tend to feel what?
Sleepy.
Sleepy, tired, fatigued. Think about workers. 12-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts. How about 12-hour shift and then 2 hours in traffic, right? And then you come to work the next shift and then you have a meeting with the manager talking, the safety man talking, but you, I mean, you're not fully there. You understand? You just want to get your shift over with, right? So that we have other barriers to communication. But these questions in themselves, or this slide in itself, have not come for questions, right? So there are many ways verbal communication could occur: safety circles, discussion groups, Zoom, emails. Well, emails is kind of written anyway, but Zoom is still kind of verbal, right? Written notices could take many forms: memos, employee handbook, job description, work procedures, reports. Most common is the notice board. Well, most common before the pandemic is a notice board, right? These must be well positioned, reviewed, and updated regularly to maintain its effectiveness. This is a question from before the pandemic, so there's no need really to focus on that particular question, right? For written communication, need to consider a person who have visual or learning difficulties, need to consider persons who have poor reading skills. Other limitation, maybe visual, maybe psychological, right? That could be, another factor as well, right? Graphic communication, this is communication by means of drawing, photographs, videos, films, company internet, and devices that utilize some means of electronic or digital medium. The advantage is that you can show a video and attract, and retain the attention of the participants. It can be updated readily to ensure that the information is disseminated is relatively relevant, and simple. I'll tell you why I'm laughing after this one, right? Disadvantage. Too much reliance on the electronic medium as opposed to face-to-face communication may result in a loss of personal touch, power failure, unable to read the fine print, poor positioning of the electronic medium if you're using something like a projector, leading to a disability glare, right? Do you know, I was telling another class this morning, do you know that before the pandemic, right? And I think you know this, right? NEBOSH used to be 3 subjects. So like all now, so we should now be finishing a subject. Well, kind of like how you all have, but you'd have had class whole morning now. Before the pandemic, you had 3 subjects on a Saturday. They break it down to 1 exam now and 1 project, right? But why I laugh for is because part of this subject, right? One of the things you had to do you all know this? Do you know you had to do the exam in full PPE? There was one of the exam, you had to come in full PPE. You all know that? You had to buy your own hard hat. Yeah. Talk to anybody who did NEBOSH before the pandemic. You had to come in a hard hat. You had to come in coverall, a safety shoes, and you had 2 hours to do the 3rd exam. You had to walk around a company. We had to carry it to a company. That's how NEBOSH was. We had to, well, we used to use a maxi or something, and we carry all the students to a company. Various companies around Trinidad. I went east, west, north, and south. I went, Port of Spain, hospital, companies that no longer existed now anyway because Massey changed, right? But that's how you used to do your exam. And then part of the course, you see in this particular unit, NG1, you used to have to do a presentation. Like this part of it here are written, you had to present something in front of the class, a safety topic. Yeah, things change. Life is easy now. You're home. The most you'll probably do is fall asleep. But the thing is that it's much easier now than it was long ago, right? At least pass an exam that is anyway, right? Let me see. I'll stop in there, right? There we stop in today, but I have like 6 minutes again. Let me see if we could find the February paper. I have a folder named exam. So just to find that, if I could find that, I would get it, right? So what did you all think of chapter 3? Not, like I said, not difficult as chapter 1. It isn't that kind of hard going as chapter 1. Today was all about culture and improving health and safety culture, right? So I got a folder. Let me open. This is February paper. You may see what I was talking about, right? I'll squeeze it in, but we reached where I wanted to reach. I am, like I said, much happier now knowing, that, we started chapter 3. I know that's what we had to be anyway. It could not have been anywhere else, right? And we reached where we're supposed to reach. Now, what that means is next week is 3. Well, there's still a bit of 3.2, but next week is 3.3. And keep your focus on for this one, because 3.4, once we finish the theory on that, we start the project, right? Many of you have been absent, but that's where the project is taught. The project is taught once you finish 3.4, right? Let me know if you can see this passive in the background. We just look at the question. There's only 4 minutes remaining. Are you all seeing management of health and safety in the background? Yeah, okay. Let's kind of scroll along. We'll see what came. This is February paper. This is you want to tell that people enjoyed. Well, I had, for the year, it had more challenging papers than this one, right? So we have not done auditing. Change management control is actually chapter 3. Training to develop competence. All of this is chapter 3. Procedural controls. But a lot of these are actually easy, right? When you look at them, right? Financial argument to improve health and safety. Duty of the employer to their employees. But look at number 7, indicators of health and safety culture. So it was actually 12. Remember, I tell you 15, but a girl told me she put 25 answers for this. I tell you she was wasting time. Because, when I say wasting time, right? She passed, right? She passed, but 25, they didn't give her so much of marks. If she put 15, fine, but she put 25. She said she find 25 negative indicators, right? And so comment on the indicators of a negative health and safety culture within the organization at the time of the audit. And that would not have been, people love these questions, I tell you. Negative, people love them. Negative health and safety culture, people love those questions, right? 3 minutes again, maybe we could find one, right? So they say at the time of the audit, I'm looking for a heading. Negative culture at the time of the audit. Audit planning. Okay, so they say at the time of the audit. So I've seen this on the day of the audit, right? So on the day of the audit, you arrive at worker A in the production department and go directly to the supervisor's office. Supervisor B is on duty. They are surprised to see you. So you explain that you are there to begin the audit. Supervisor B tells you that the PM did not inform them about the audit. So that's one right there. They explain that they are very busy, but they will never be a good time. So go ahead and we'll try to fit it in around production. That's another one there, focusing on production, right? But it's how easy it is, right? So then you say, what is a negative? You understand, folks? I tell you the notes is one thing, but all your answers right here. Stop worrying. Right? A lot of y'all, some people tell me they're getting bored during the week. If you're getting bored during the week, sign up for our next NEBOSH course. Right? But no, for real. Right? If you're getting bored, I don't know, go in the gym or something, right? Do like me. I went to the park this morning, spent an hour, go and do something else, right? Book a flight or something, try to get something, right? But NEBOSH is not that challenging anymore now, right? Stop over worrying, right? Like I tell you, it used to be 4 o'clock. Now, this is when we finish in lectures and in the school down at Riverside Drive, right? It used to be a long day, right? And that wasn't my business back then. I remember I staying back, to tell you the, I remember staying back, emptying the garbage, and a student passed and said, like, so like you have shares in this company. I was like, no, I just work in here, but I can't leave the place in a mess, right? But yeah, it used to be like that, right? Anyway, but now NEBOSH is easier. Just get the answers, right? So you say what is negative, you put an answer, you say, in my opinion, a negative safety culture. I would have wrapped that up by saying a lack of communication. I would have said here the answer would have been, so that would have been my answer then, poor communication. And then I would have just used the line to support that. Remember, each response must have an answer and it must have the supporting line, right? So I'll say, in my opinion, what is negative was that there seemed to be, like poor communication or inadequate communication between the PM, that's production manager, and supervisor B. Then I said, this is in the case study where it was said, supervisor tells you that the PM did not inform them about the audit. Finish. Next one. How hard is that? You don't even have to study today, right? It's 4 o'clock on the dot. Let's stop there, right? Yeah, tell you if I was you, I'd be, and even the level 4, things is so much better now, right? I tell you, like, long ago, right? Back when it had dinosaurs and I was teaching around that time, right? If you wanted to make a joke about NEBOSH, this is a true thing I tell you. If you wanted to make your class laugh, because you physically laughed at this, you would tell the class NEBOSH have multiple choice. And everybody would just start laughing. Because everybody NEBOSH hard now. But do you know the level 4 program to this is multiple choice? You're doing level 3. Do you know the level 4 to this is multiple choice? Today, 2025. All right. Ambika Bernard, thanks very much. Do enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Folks, I want to send you see the one from before I write it down. Remember, I told you I wrote it down, right? June 2023. I'm going to try to send you that now and before I forget. I don't have a class after you all, right? So after we sign off, I'm going to send you this now, right? Before I forget, right? Devon is here.
Yeah, present.
Yeah. Cedronessa, Ben. I don't think she's in the live, right? Justin Mirage. And now it's had a feeling cough coming back, which is good. When I was in the groove, I wasn't coughing, right? Justin Mirage. Just let me see if I could see some of the names. Quite a lot of people absent, probably because of the rain, right? Well, I mean, probably sleeping or something. Justin Mirage is not here. Okay, Janelle Jack is here. Ryan Moore is here. I'm seeing the name. Videsh.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Videsh is here. Andre is here. Emily.
Present.
Yep, thanks, Andre. Emily Gopal. Carissa Joseph. Not seeing her. Sangita. I know the
Here,
message.
Chef.
Okay, good. Yep. Good. Thanks very much. Chelsea's here. Brittany Ramdas. Wayne is here. Brittany Modest. Okay, thanks, Wayne. Vidal Joseph. Ishwar Maharaj. Can see him. Page 14 is not here. Carol Vargas, I told you on route exam early, right? Because she's a repeater. But she chose that. Daryl is here. Shivan is here.
Present, sir.
Yeah. Shanika James, thanks very much there. Shanika James. Aliyah is here. Rishon Suknanan is here. Did not see Mark Anthony. And then we have Christine Rampasad. All right. Shanika James, again, no. Let's see. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. I'll see you all back next week, Saturday. We'll continue chapter 3, right? I'm gonna take a little 5-minute break, make some coffee again, and I'll send you this and then head out for today. All right?
All right, sir. Okay.
All the best.
I see Akima look for you today.
Yes. Nice seeing you. Yes. Okay, very good. Thanks for that.
Okay, bye-bye.